Okay, I'm here with Coach Brendo in our Troy Service Center Coaches Show, getting ready for Duluth East again tonight. Thanks for joining us, Coach, and a little bit crazy circumstances here to get you ready to play Duluth East for the second week in a row.
Yeah, no kidding. It started on Monday or Tuesday where Mr. Wood said that Denfeld was having some possible issues with COVID, and they're having some kids tested, but they'll let us know. Well, during that same period of time, Mesabi East, who's also in the Northeast District with us at 2A school, they were already out. Evelyn, I believe, bailed immediately, and they were done. So they needed a game. So we kind of had Mesabi East on the back burner if Denfeld bailed. And Mesabi East needed to know by like Wednesday, I think, Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And then Wednesday at 3 o'clock, Denfeld was like, nope, we're fine. We're good. All the tests came back negative. So then yesterday, Mr. Wood called me in the morning and said, well, Duluth East is out of a game now because of North Branch pulling the plug. So he said, well, if Denfeld isn't a go, I said, I thought it was a go. And he goes, well, in case something changes, we would talk to Mesabi East first and then Duluth East. I said, okay. Honestly, the next thing I heard as I went to practice and I walked into the Eggerdahl field about 3:10 and Mr. Edmonds goes, hey, the boys are just saying that Sam Ali tweeted that we play East. I'm like, no. I said, I just talked to Mr. Wood like an hour ago. We're playing Denfeld. And I said, plus, they must mean Mesabi East if if the Denfeld thing got canceled. And they're like, no, he tweeted it out. 30 seconds later, Mr. Wood called and said, yeah, you're playing Duluth East. And what ended up happening is Denfeld called at 2:30 canceling because they said they didn't get all their tests back in time, which kind of frustrated us. And then he called Mesabi East, and Mesabi East didn't answer. So then the Duluth East AD called like 5 minutes after because I'm sure he knew that Denfeld canceled and we needed a game. And he said, you want a game or not? So Mr. Wood said yes. And then like 20 minutes after that, Mesabi East called and said we could play. But he already took the Duluth East one. So here we are playing East again. So that's what we got here.
So, obviously, yeah, you'd rather play a different opponent, not the same opponent 2 weeks in a row. But, having played them just last week and, what are some things that you learned last week about that game? Or what's your mindset, I guess, going into tonight's game, not necessarily having been able to prepare for East again, but, you prepared for them last week. What are some things that you saw in that game that you maybe exploit? And, I guess what is the mindset going in for you as the coaching staff and what you're hoping to, I guess, get from tonight?
Well, we were looking at, obviously we start pretty poorly this year. All of our games, we don't get off those hot starts. And I think in the first half against East, we had 4, I call them unforced turnovers. There was one where Evan threw a long bomb type of deal, but it was 3rd and 18. And I literally told him, throw it as far as you can. And lucky for us, the East kid caught it and fell down. So it was better than a punt. So I don't really count that as a bad turnover, but we had 2 other interceptions and 2 fumbles that I don't think East did much to do to get it. We can't turn the ball over. So we were down 26-0 at half or whatever it was. But the first 18 minutes of the second half before East started kind of pulling their starters, we were up 9-7. And I truly believe that we won those 18 minutes. And it showed that we can really play with these guys as long as we don't make the mistakes. We have to play perfect against the teams that we have on our schedule, and East is no different. So we said it last week at halftime. We said, erase the scoreboard, go out and play. And then after the game, we outscored them 17-7 in the second half. And I know they might have had some of their subs in the last drive, but we felt before they started subbing in some of their backups, ones versus ones more or less, we won 9-7. So that shows that we can play against them. And then the thing that we talked about is, we got to control what we can control. We can't control how we ended up playing East again. It's better than playing nobody. Mm-hmm. And I look at it as, I've been in sports a long time, and you have that rematch. And a rematch like this, one or two things could happen. If East comes out and kind of blows the doors off again in the first quarter, our kids might go, oh, here we go again. And that's a tough thing to dig out of. or you come in there and you're like, you know what, we played with you in the second half, and we're going to start that way tonight, and it would be a good game. So obviously that's the outcome we're looking for is for our kids to come out and play like they did in the second half against East.
Well, obviously, in that first game against East last week was kind of costly. You lose Nick Jahola to a season-ending injury. What does that mean for you offensively and defensively, in terms of his contribution and what you're going to lose there?
Well, defensively, we actually ended up going more into a straight four-man front instead of playing the 3-5. Nick's an outside linebacker. We actually just brought in an extra lineman, and we went more into a four-man front at that point. We had another player, Jake Amendola, who was playing soccer a few weeks ago, wanted to come out and kick, and he's playing linebacker for us. A good athlete, and we'll see what he can do here on a consistent basis, learning a little bit more as we go. And then offensively, once again, we had to juggle some things around. Last week, Sage Henderson did a nice job of moving into that tight end position. The one thing that happened this year with the short practice times and the lack of depth with us, we haven't really worked on a lot of number twos. But Sage had played tight end in the past, and he's taken a few reps there, so he came in there. Now this week we ended up moving Trevor Lindbergh to a little bit of a tight end and putting Sage out there back to his natural X position. But Sage is going to start at tight end tonight for us, but it's just a maneuver that we have to look at without having Nick there, moving some guys around. And Trevor's been great about being in there and saying, yeah, I'll take on the new position. I understand why we're doing this. Same thing with Sage. So it's just more adjustments that we have to make in this crazy season.
And I know you talked about like Cole Fuger being banged up a little bit. Any other guys either suffering from some legging injuries or coming back from injury?
Nate Onken had a hamstring there for a few weeks, and I think he's going to be back to full time. We kind of tried to play him one way to take some reps off his leg, but I think he's going to be playing more and more offense for us tonight, possibly. Giving Dom Jola a little break at the fullback. With that, we'll try to keep our guys as fresh as possible there. Cole's a little banged up. Dane Johnson missed most of the East game with a quad contusion, I believe it was, with it. So, it's part of the game, and we got to work our way through it. So everybody's listed to play tonight from yesterday and that. So we got a few bumps and bruises, but we should be able to make it.
So now, how do you as a coach, knowing that 5 days from now you're playing Hermantown, which is kind of the big thing, your team looks forward to, the community looks forward to, how do you keep them from maybe looking ahead to that game instead of dealing with tonight?
You just keep concentrating on tonight. We've barely uttered the words Hermantown, to be perfectly honest. And I think in years past where, say, Proctor's a good team and Hermantown's a good team, and maybe tonight we're playing a team that's not very good, we would have a tendency to look past them and start looking at that. But when we have one win this year, we don't have that problem to look past teams. So we're concentrating on East. I haven't really heard the guys say a whole bunch about it at all, in that vein. So I think we're doing okay there. And the game plan will be tomorrow's hunting opener. We're just going to let the kids go. And coaches, I got a couple of coaches that wouldn't be real happy with practice tomorrow also. So I know I'll be doing my work. The coaches will be doing their work online. And plus having a practice the day after the game isn't very useful anyways. Having a practice tomorrow morning wouldn't do a lot for us. So we'll do our prep work. We'll get them all set, and we'll come in ready to play. And that's kind of how 2020 is going. The prep is kind of out the window, usual prep, and you just take what you can get and go out there and play as hard and as long as you can.
So now, obviously, Hermantown game next week, but then after that, there's a lot of uncertainty about playoffs and what that looks like. But, in playoffs, you drop kind of down to Section 7 AAA. Right. What do you know about those teams and where you're sitting and, and kind of looking ahead for your team?
Well, I believe we're the 5 seed right now out of 6 teams. So in a weird way, I was talking to some of the coaches. It's kind of nice to not be the 1 or 2 seed that get buys because we're closer to a game then. If we won all 3 or played in all 3 games, we actually get an extra game versus a 1 or 2 seed. And also the way that the pandemic is moving through the state of Minnesota, we don't know if we're going to get to play tomorrow. So the faster you can get your games in, the better off you are. And I could see a scenario where we get in the the Tuesday playoff game and the state pulls the plug. Well, that's one game that we get that maybe somebody else did it. So, we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to get into the playoffs. Right now, we're the 5 seed. I think Aiken is probably the best team in our section. And then you have Esco and Two Harbors and Virginia that all have a couple 3 wins, and they kind of beat up on each other. And that way, Greenway, I don't think's won a game yet. They might have 1 win, and then there's us, and we're just kind of the odd duck there because we don't play any of those teams. So it's kind of hard to do that. And this year, without even any cross matchups at all from anybody, you can't even say, well, Two Harbors beat Denfeld and Proctor beat Denfeld. Kind of get a gauge that way. You can't even do that this year. So we'll get thrown in, and we're going to see how well we do when we get there. But we're looking at East right now, and we're moving to Hermantown. And honestly, I'll look at playoffs probably next Thursday to see where we're at, and we'll make adjustments as necessary.
Well, tonight, a beautiful night for November. Should be a beautiful night. So one of the coolest traditions you do in Proctor football is that Father's game, and that you're going to do that tonight. Talk a little bit about how important that is for your program and your kids.
Yeah, we've been doing this for, I think, 6, 7, 8 years now, and I got the idea from Mitch Dorr up in Cook County, and he talked about it. I was at a coach's clinic, or I don't know what we were doing, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. In which, for those people that don't know, what we do is we invite in all the fathers or father figures to spend the night, to spend the evening with us there at the game. They come for warm up. They go with us before the game when we do our pregame talk. They're on the sidelines. All the way through the whole thing, so they can share that moment with their kids and kind of get to experience that sideline atmosphere with their kid. And we talk about how the American culture and society's changed and what father figures are and what chances these kids have. So we want to put that out there for them to do that. Now, obviously, this year it's going to be a little different. In the past, we've been very inclusive, inviting the dads out to run the drills with us, throw the football around. And with this year, we're asking them just to stay on the sidelines, and they can encircle the sideline in the end zone during warmups and not necessarily be in the drills and throwing the ball with them. Having the masks on, obviously, with the social distancing. And then when we go for our pregame talks, just keep extra space from everybody. We will be outside, and we'll follow the 250-person rule for the facility, and that's we're just going to keep our spaces there. But kind of how 2020 is gone, I guess. Every year I try to get the dad something, a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, whatever it is. And if it's early in the year, we've kind of maybe gone with a t-shirt or even a hat, like a baseball hat or something. Or if it's a little later in the year, we get them a sweatshirt. Well, this year I was thinking, okay, I'm going to beat this ahead. And I went and I said, well, we're going to get them stocking caps because it's going to be middle of November. One time in 25 years, it's going to be 60 degrees out. And on top of it, when I went to open it, I ordered through a local company here, and we're going through logos, and they got a nice little dad Proctor Rails football logo that they put on these hats. I opened them up and they're black and not green. So we'll be playing Duluth East, and all of our dads will have black hats on in support of Duluth East. It does say Proctor Rails on it, though. So I just kind of laughed like, you've got to be kidding. I opened up the box, not green, and I called the company, and they said, well, the order form that I signed was black. I said, but the proof that you sent me was green. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's our bad. And obviously they can't fix it by now. And I'm like, close enough. We'll take them and chalk it up to 2020, I guess. But the dads will get a nice stocking cap to wear if it ever cools down.
Well, it's supposed to cool down next week, so it should be interesting in that Hermantown game. Right. Coach, thanks for joining us again in the Troy Service Center Coaches Show. And it's Proctor Duluth East Part 2 coming up after the break.